morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Okay, can you hear me now? All right. I'm Teri. Like Mike said, thank you for joining us today. So the topic of the discussion for this session is don't send me to a nursing home. Now, if any of you are in the nursing home business, I'm not dissing nursing homes. I just wanted to focus on the different choices that you may have for your loved one. As you all know, 92% of all people that get surveyed would prefer to age gracefully at home and not have to go to a nursing home. I haven't heard anybody walk around saying, when I get older and disabled, I can't wait to go to a nursing home. Nobody says that. Everybody wants to stay at home. And that's the ideal situation. You've heard all the cliches. There's no place like home. Home is where the heart is. And it's true. And in this culture in Hawaii, we take care of each other. The families are taking care of each other. And a lot of times people don't understand what it takes to keep somebody at home. So I'm not going to paint a rosy picture for you that says, oh, home is just going to be easy cheesy. You know, just click the button, then click your shoes, and home care is going to happen. There are a lot of factors you need to think about before you make that decision to keep your loved one at home. So how many here are in a situation where they're taking care of somebody? Either a father, a mother, a sister, a brother. How many here are in the, has somebody in a nursing home? How many here has somebody in a care home? So there's all different options, and there's no right way and there's no wrong way. It's just like homeschooling your kids. You can homeschool your kids, you can put your kids in a private school, you can put your kids in a public school. There's no wrong way, no right way. Everybody needs to do what's right for them, for their situation. So in home care, before you make that decision, before your family member comes home from the hospital, or before your family member gets much into a situation where you're stuck and it becomes a 911 crisis, you really need to plan ahead. And I just went through the situation with my father, and you know, he's now in a better place. But he started in the home, and then my mom got completely burnt out. We weren't there. I'm here. She's on the mainland. We were all a couple hours away. And she made the decision to put my dad in a care home. And initially, I was really, really upset and bummed. But I know that she did the right thing to keep her sanity and to keep their relationship going. So there is no right or wrong way. So never feel guilty for what you're doing with your family member. The key is to plan ahead and to communicate with all your family members so you don't have fighting in front of your family member that's needing the help. So like Mike said, I'm the COO of Hawaii Healthcare, and we do home care for the elderly and for pediatric patients. So we do home care for skilled nursing, companions, home health aides. We can pretty much do anything in the home that you need. We take all different types of insurances. And we also have the healthcare staffing side called High Nursing, where we have contracts with the hospitals. So I would like to just talk a little bit about the tools that we need to stay in the home. I'm going to see if I can do this from afar. Oh, yay. Okay, you want to look at the big picture. Now, what does that mean to you, the big picture? You can raise your hands. What does that mean when you're looking at the big picture? Everything. A lot of stuff. A lot of things you're not even going to think about. Okay, let's start with the big one, the piggy bank. Okay, home care is not cheap. If anyone says home care is cheap, it's not. I'll be honest with you. Everything comes at a price. Nursing homes come at a price because after X amount of days, your Medicare runs out. A care home comes at a price, and home care comes at a price. Once again, it's what your family decides you can do. You need to have all the tools to be successful in any decision you make. You can do private duty home care, and if your health insurance is covered, if you're on MedQuest, if you're on Quexa, Ohana, United Healthcare. For instance, we have contracts with all of those insurance companies, HMSA, et cetera. You really need to look at the bottom dollar and say, okay, if Dad's going to be around for another 2 years, can we do it this way? Or are you going to say, we'll keep Dad home for 6 months with our funds and then place Dad in a care home? But everything comes at a price, whether it's you taking care of him and you you working, doing it yourself, or you having somebody else, you really need to evaluate the finances of the family and who's going to pay. The magnifying glass. That means read the details of any contract you are signing. So if you are signing contracts with your care home, your nursing home, or with a home care agency, always read the entire contract. Ask all your questions. Be like an FBI investigator. Make sure your home care company does all the background checks and their fingerprinting and does national background checks, and that their caregiver is not part of the elder abuse list, and they haven't done anything to be on the medical disciplinary board. So always be like an FBI agent, because this is your family member. You would never want your family member to be placed in a compromising situation. Timing. You see the little stopwatch there? Caregiving takes time. If you're going to be in the home taking care of your dad, know that it's going to take time. And it will take time to get him out of bed because he's going to be slower, and taking him to the bathroom. And there's no more precious gift than giving your time to your family member. And that's probably the best thing about caregiving in the home, is the honor you get to take care of a family member when they've taken care of you all those years. So you need to also talk to your family about who's going to come in for what shift. Who's going to do the night shift? Who's going to do the day shift? Who's going to watch the kids? Who's going to pick up? Who's going to do all the meds? Who's going to change the diapers? Who's going to order all the supplies? And so the more you communicate with your family, the less fighting there will be. I can't tell you how many families we encounter with one doesn't want this and the other one wants this, and it's unfortunate because it's always happening while the need is happening at the moment. Please always try to plan ahead and discuss things with your family members, because there's nothing worse than a family breaking apart when illness occurs. Do you see the little tape measure there? That is just measuring all of your options, measuring all of your decisions, and discussing again with your family members. So you need to hammer out all the details before a crisis happens, but I can tell you 95% of the time it happens after the crisis has occurred, because we're humans, and it's just common for human nature for us to wait to the last minute. And the little rubber ducky, you want to make sure you're always afloat. You're always staying afloat and treading water and not sinking. Once you start sinking, then you need to look at your other options outside of the home, or bringing caregivers into the home if you start sinking and you are no longer the rubber ducky on top of the water. Okay, any questions? Just raise your hand. Shout it out. All right, deciding whether or not to stay at home. Well, first you have to look at your location and accessibility. Where is the home located? Is the home accessible? Is there a steep driveway? Are there a lot of steps? What if Dad is in a wheelchair? How is he going to get up and down? Is his gait unsteady? Is it safe for Dad to be going up and down the steps of his house? Location of the home. Is it hard to get there? Is the home in a rural place where it's hard to access different resources? Home accessibility and maintenance. Are you having to do a lot of mowing the lawn, raking leaves, taking all those palm leaves down, doing a lot of maintenance, and now Dad is no longer able to do that? Who's going to do the maintenance for Dad's house? Who's going to go in there and take care of all the maintenance of the home? Is the home modified for your loved one? In other words, if their gait is unsteady, do you have side rails along the walls? Do you have side rails where the toilet is? Do you have rails in the shower so they can hold on? All of these things you have to think about. And the good news is there are resources out there that will help you. There are companies that will come out to do home inspections. We actually do our own home inspections, and then we'll make recommendations on what needs to be done, and we can even recommend to you what companies to use to modify that home. So you want to make sure that it has the steps are safe. Are the carpets glued down so they don't trip over the carpet? Are the gutters dripping to cause mold on the ground where the person could slip? So when we come in for home inspections, we look at all those things. We see how Dad gets out of bed, how long it takes him to get to the bathroom, how many steps does it take before he feels like he's going to not make it to the bathroom. And there's help out there for you. So if you want to do home care, you really need to access all those resources so you can feel good that dad is in a safe place. You want to make sure that your family and friends are nearby. My dad was on the mainland. There was nothing more heartbreaking than for me to be here when my dad was on the mainland. And it was tough. I will tell you, that's probably the toughest thing about living in Hawaii. We can't just get in a car and drive. You have to book a flight. And so it's make sure your family and friends are nearby to help in a crisis situation or just to check on them. Many families rely on other friends and neighbors to check on their loved ones. So really just the key is always just to access your resources that you have. Isolation. What do you think isolation means? You know, dad's getting more sick. He's not getting out and about. All of a sudden, he's sort of staying at home and not seeing his friends, not doing any social events, and that can lead to depression. And depression is a big factor to consider when you're keeping your loved one at home. Because depression, there's nothing to live for, then they start going downhill so fast. So you have to really be mindful that if that's happening, to make sure that they're either going to have caregivers coming to the home or reevaluate if dad needs to go to a skilled assisted living or a skilled home where there are other people keeping him like the duck above and floating above the water. So isolation is a terrible thing that you can just spiral downward with, and you want to make sure that person is not getting depressed. Medical conditions. I know it sucks getting old. So as we get older, medical conditions are just going to keep on happening. That's just a part of life. And we all long for those days where, and I'm a member of the AARP, and I'm just like, oh my gosh, it's getting, almost going to be 60 soon. It's spooky. But medical conditions are going to happen, and you never know what you're going to need. And your medical condition needs to change, then you need to change how you're thinking. If there's a lot of medications, who's monitoring the medications? Or do you have the pill box all lined up, and is somebody looking to see if all the medications were taken, or are they being stuffed in a shoebox? And so there's the medical aspect is big, because now you're getting into things that are durable medical equipment, what's being covered by your Medicare, and as you all know with Obamacare, things have been changing monthly on what gets covered. So 1 month your shower chair gets covered, and next month, like, oh, we're not covering it this month, So you really need to know, with all the healthcare changes, what is being covered and what is not. And take advantage of everything that is being covered, because you don't know if it's going to be covered the following month. So medical conditions play a big part in keeping your loved one at home. And then finances. We talked about that piggy bank. Finances are tough, and if you don't have the financial means, look into your community and look into Catholic charities, and look into all the different agencies out there that can help you, possibly with the Meals on Wheels or anything that could help offset your finances when somebody's in the home care setting. Medicare will not cover somebody coming to the home on an hourly basis. As you all know, Medicare is for skilled intermittent visits and maybe a bath 1 or 2 times a week. So all those years that we worked and put into Medicare, that's what it covers. Is that shocking to you? Because I bet you thought when you got older, the Medicare is going to cover me when I'm sick. But heck no. It's only for skilled intermittent visits, like your physical therapy, your occupational therapy, your speech therapy, IV changes, IV dressings, and an occasional bath. But everything else you're forking out the money for, unless you have an insurance plan that will cover something, your long-term care insurance. How many here have long-term care insurance? Not many. But you know why? Because this generation, it wasn't really pressed upon us as we were younger to get long-term care insurance. And then as you get older, to go get your long-term insurance costs a lot of money. And then if you don't read the fine print, when you need the long-term care insurance, they're going to say, well, you only get 3 hours a day, because you have to fulfill 30 hours a week first for 10 weeks. And so always, if you're getting a long-term care insurance plan, look at the bottom line, because you know what they say about the details. The devil's in the details. And so many people have long-term care insurance plans that they can't access and are not good for what they need. So the key, once again, is just like being the Boy Scout, being prepared is the key to anyone being in the home or or a facility. Okay, let's see. What can help me stay at home? Household maintenance. Okay, that means maybe you need to send the gardener to go do his lawn so he can stay home, so he's not breaking his back or falling. Maybe you need to send someone in to clean the house once or twice a week so he doesn't get overwhelmed with having to clean the house. And think about the resources that you could utilize from the community so that person can stay at home. So household maintenance, you want to keep things running smoothly. Is somebody paying the bills? Who's monitoring the pickup of the medications, etc.? Transportation is a big thing as you're getting older. There's nothing more deflating than someone saying, you can't drive anymore because you keep saying you're turning right, but your left blinker's on. And then they take your license away and now you're stuck. Well, now, a lot of people get depressed because you're taking away your independence. So transportation, can you access the transportation that is available in our community? We have Handy Van out here. Handy Van has its place. It's not ideal. You have to wait many hours for that Handy Van to pick you up afterwards. There are taxi cabs, there are Friends, there are transportation services out here. We have a lot of options. I don't think any is perfect, but you have to utilize what we have. We have a lot more options than I know some other states do. So transportation is a big issue because you've got to get Dad to the doctor's office and you've got to take him for his appointments and get his hearing aid fixed. And many companies will offer transportation services to help with that aspect. Personal care. Maybe Dad's doing okay, but he just can't pull up his diaper yet, and he's not washing himself. And every time you go to visit him, he's just smells god awful. So, maybe a home health aide coming into the home will help him to get bathed and showered, shaved, and shined. And we call it our Rise and Shine package, where we just go in and we get everybody their bath and teeth brushed and brush those dentures and get them ready for the day. And then our Tuck and Fluff service, where we're going in that night and making sure Dad can get back into bed and his teeth are brushed and his hearing aid is turned off, et cetera, et cetera. So that's another aspect that can help keep your family member at home. And then day programs. Day programs are really great, especially when everyone is working and you just need 8 hours for Dad to be someplace so we can all go to work. And there's some really great adult daycare programs out here. There's a waiting list. If you haven't looked at them, there's a waiting list for most. They do a lot of activities. They actually some of them do occupational therapy and speech therapy, and it's covered by your Medicare. But there's a waiting list. So once again, what's the word? Be prepared. But the adult daycare is an option, so you're not taxing a family 24/7 to keep Dad at home. Okay, this is all about getting all the family members on the same page. You all need to be wearing the same team T-shirt, because if this family member wants a G-tube, and you guys, and the next family member doesn't want a gastrostomy tube, and this family member says, we're going to put him on a ventilator, and this family member says, no, hit him with a 2x4, let's, it can cause a lot of problems. So no matter how hard you plan, if you don't get all the family members aligned on the same team, it's just going to cause more issues. And the decision to go on hospice or not go on hospice needs to be talked about with everyone, and the primary caregiver makes a decision. So getting your loved ones involved is important. Even the person who you're taking care of, allow them to have input on what they want and what they think is important to them. Maybe they don't want a male caregiver, they just want a female. So you want to honor that, because if you don't feel comfortable with a male caregiver and we send you a male caregiver, that's just not going to be good for the family member. So we want to get your loved ones involved in the home care services. Okay, any questions?
Yes.
Yes.
For your personal care and home care, what's the minimum hours you come to the house?
To the house, usually the agencies is 2 to 3 hours minimum. Yes. If you live out in Ha'aula by the hygienic store? I'll probably say 3 because of driving. So we do it by evaluate where you're located. Really, it's the location and where the caregiver is. If you're North Shore and in the middle of Buxtehude and you're off of the bus line, it's going to be tougher. So we will work with you on that, but usually it's a 2 to 3 hour minimum. Okay, finding the right home care services. You can finding outside providers. Go to your church, your support groups. Find out with the people that you network with, what they've done, what the resources are. Talk to your friends. Look at all the people in this room here. I bet if you all spent 15 minutes talking to each other, you would get so much information, much more than from me, because you're all going through it. And you can give good input on what worked, what didn't work, and who to go to and who not to go to. So I encourage you to talk to your support groups and not be afraid to know that you're struggling, because you're not the only one that's struggling. This is something that's inevitable for all of us. And having support for this kind of situation is really so helpful in this day and age. Utilize the older adult resources. We've got the Aging in Place workshop today. We've got the Elderly Affairs Division. We've got a lot of senior support groups out here in Hawaii. It's amazing how many we have. And each one has a good benefit, and each one has something that they concentrate on. So they put out those little booklets that looks like 5 by 7. It's called Resources for Seniors. And they have so much great information. I really encourage you to look at all those and share whatever information you have with others. Sometimes people don't feel comfortable enough sharing that they're struggling at home. And sometimes you just have to maybe ask a couple questions, or just say, hey, I've got this great book that has resources for seniors. Would you like me to give it to you? Because some people suffer silently and don't know how to ask for help. Do we go with an agency or an independent provider? Well, you know what I'm going to say. You're going to go with an agency. I can't tell you how many families come to us and say, yeah, I hired so-and-so off the street. She came off of Craigslist, and she was really nice. She was so nice, but a year later, I have no silverware. All my banking is gone. She's been stealing underneath my nose and using my credit cards, because you don't know who you're getting when you're hiring off of Craigslist. And yes, it's going to be a lot cheaper to hire somebody independent. So if you're going to hire somebody independent, you need to do your own background check. You can do that. You need to make sure that they don't have a problem from the mainland, and why did they come to Hawaii? And get your fingerprinting done. And do a drug test. If you're going to hire independently, you do not want your family member to be abused. And there's so much elderly abuse out in every state. It's a crime that these our elderly and our loved ones get taken advantage of. So if you're going to go the independent route, come call me. I'll tell you what tests we run. We do so many tests, but I would be happy to share with you if you're going to go the independent way. But we do national testing of background checks, because I know people fly here from the mainland to run away from something. And we do the Hawaii checks. We do an 11-point drug test, which includes your alcohol, because as you know, there's a lot of functioning alcoholics. So we do drug testing before we hire them. And you won't believe how many people walk out the door before they're like, oh, I'll be right back. I forgot my purse. And they disappear. So we do drug testing sometimes right after the interview. And we weed a lot of people out, no pun intended. But we filter out people before they come on board with us. And why is it important to do an 11-point drug screen? We used to do the 10-point, but the 11 is the alcohol, and that's the big one, because alcohol is the most abused drug, more than any other drug. So we do that, and we do a multitude of skills testing and testing the labs to make sure they know how to transfer correctly and how to give a shower correctly and not break the dentures and not break the hearing aid, which is also expensive. So there's a lot of things you can do to protect yourself. I know some families who have the video cameras hidden, whatever you feel is necessary. But always, if you're going to go the independent route, feel free to call me and I'll tell you all the different things that we do. An agency is going to cost you more. Why? Because we run all those tests. We do supervisory visits on a monthly or bi-monthly basis. So we have clinical managers that come out to the home. They do a free assessment for your family. They'll do the home inspection. They'll come up with a plan of care that says, what are we going to do? What tasks are we going to do? What does grandma want to do? How does she want this to work? And then that supervisor comes out on an ongoing basis to make sure that everything's kosher in the home. So it's really important to have supervision of your caregivers in the home. Your agency is going to be more expensive. We carry the workman's comp for you. We carry the insurance. So if anything happens to that caregiver in the home, the agency takes the hit for it, opposed to you taking the hit for it. Did you know in the state of Hawaii, if you hire somebody independently and they are working more than 20 hours a week for you, you're supposed to be giving them health insurance. And if that caregiver hurts herself in the home, she has every right to go back to you and sue you for damages and have you pick up the bill. So just be really careful who you're hiring if it's not through an agency. And there are some great people out there. You just have to do your homework. Okay? There are full service agencies and registries. Full service agencies is something like I just discussed, where they do everything, the drug testing, the skills testing, the supervision, etc. And there are some registries and independent providers. It's just a matter of doing your homework and, once again, being prepared. Question? Yes?
If we want housekeeping, maybe, I don't know how many times a week, who do we call?
We provide shore services. It's called companion care. So we have companion care and we have housekeeping services. Now, we're not the Mary Maids, so we're not going to be cleaning all the corners. If you want Mary Maid service, you should call the Mary Maid service. But we do have companions, which are at a lesser rate, where we can do the light housekeeping and do medication reminders, watch the food channel with your loved one and make sure that they don't wander off, etc.
So we call you? You have a card?
Yes, Michael was giving out cards. He's got them in the back, and I have at the end, I have got my business cards here. Okay.
You have something called a companion?
Yes, so a companion, sometimes your dad knows how to take a shower, he's independent, but he just needs to be watched because he's a wanderer. So we have companion services. It's just standby assist. They're there to make sure the wandering doesn't happen, or that he's not turning on the stove, or emptying out the refrigerator, or doing all those things that happen. So it's just called companion service. So it's no hands-on. It's going to cost you less money, but it's just somebody there. We had a family where they would never let that companion in the house, but we sat out on the porch every day during our shift to make sure Dad didn't go anywhere. And we would look in the window and say, well, he's watching TV. And then that's literally what we had to do. But the family felt comfortable knowing that at least Dad's in there watching TV, all right, sitting out on the porch. It literally was interesting.
So is the companion the same person all the time?
Yeah, so let's say you wanted a companion 8 hours a day, whatever. You want the same, everybody only works 40 hours, so if you're doing more than 40 hours, we would send in more companions. Especially with your Alzheimer's, you want consistency. Otherwise, they get too confused. So the whole goal is consistency with your caregivers in the home.
You guys offer
I'm sorry. I'm so sorry, it's hard to hear you.
You have staff members that's trying to work with difficult.
Yeah, we do. We do monthly in-services, including dementia and Alzheimer's, and with behavioral issues. So Amber is my clinical manager for the non-medical side, and she literally takes them through scenarios. And if you called and said, my father has dementia, we're going to find someone that we know that can handle it.
And what I'm concerned mostly is giving baths.
Giving baths, yes. So our office is in the same office as University of Phoenix, and we share their $2.5 million skills lab. So they literally will go through Amber for 2 or 3 hours, going through all the different tasks. And then when Amber goes to the home, she will see how the bath has to be done, and then she'll put that on the plan of care and share that with the caregiver before they go out. So it's really important to know all those little nuances for caregiving, the personal care. I'm sorry, you had another question?
No. You guys do this.
Yes,
Caregiving.
we do, yes. Okay, so we've covered that already. Okay, tips for hiring the home care providers. I already addressed some of these. If you're going to go the independent route, make sure you're interviewing them face to face. You always want to look in people's eyes because, you know, if they don't look in your eyes, don't even bother hiring them. So if you're going to go the independent route, don't do it over the phone. You get them right in front of you and you ask them all the questions and you ask them to show me how you do a bath, show me how you do this. What would you do in this situation? See, we can cover that as an agency, but if you're hiring off the streets, you've got to ask the questions. And don't be afraid to say thank you and say no thank you because you don't want to compromise or settle for your families. You want to be specific about the tasks that you want. Okay, if you want someone to do your laundry, please show us how to use the washing machine because I don't know how to use your washing machine. If you want someone to empty a dishwasher, you better say where you want the dishes, otherwise you're going to call me and say, she put the cups over here and the plates over here. If you want those specific things done, we can easily do them, but you want to be able to show them how you want it done to avoid frustration with your family. All the tasks from bathing, diapering, how they get dressed, the more you show your caregivers, the easier the transition will be because everybody has a different way of giving a bath or thinking something should be done a certain way. If you're working with an agency, like I said, make sure you read the contract. Our contract has little boxes that we're checking off, that this is the rate, this is what you're going to be paying for holidays. It's going to be covered by your Medicare, Medicaid, or private pay, or for your long-term care insurance. Just make sure your contract is something you understand, and if you have any questions, you have to feel free enough to ask those questions. And we've had some great questions from our clients, and I've taken it back to our legal department saying, you know, this doesn't make sense. Let's take this off and redo the contract. So your input is always the most valuable because you're the one signing that contract. And no contract is ever binding. So if you're with a home care agency now and they say, oh, you know, you can't change agencies, you can change agencies whenever you want because it's your family and it's your money. So never feel like you're locked into anything unless you feel really good about the situation. Like I said, check references carefully. And do you all know how you can check references? You ask them for their name, the person's name and their phone number, and make sure you have one professional reference, meaning where did you work before? Don't give me, you know, Susie, your daughter's friend's reference, and a professional reference and a personal. And don't be afraid to call those people. But professional references are really the best because anybody can vouch for you on the phone, you know. And then you can go through E-Verify online and check for Hawaii. You can check their backgrounds, check through an online service called E-Verify. So there's a lot of things you can do that aren't going to cost you a whole lot of money if you're hiring independent. And I'm not promoting that, but it's an option that, you know, I can't control. So I think if you're going to do it, you need to be prepared on what you need to check. So there's your background checks. And if it's not working, keep moving on until you find the right person. So you need to feel comfortable, and so does your family member. Because if your family member doesn't feel comfortable, they're not going to want to do what they are asking to do. And of course, you always want to give them a couple days, you know, a couple sessions to get to know each other. It's a little bit, you know, weird having somebody come into your home, right? I mean, maybe your dad's like, what do you mean someone's coming to my home and invading my space? And so it's tough. So you need to transition into it easily and make sure that there's a good chemistry between all members. Okay. If you're worried about a loved one being unsafe, how many I knew when my dad, he had Parkinson's with dementia, he started wandering. And my mom would call me up at 3 o'clock in the morning. He's like, oh my gosh, Dad, just, you know, he started walking out the door. And I said, well, now we need to get a door alarm. So in other words, every time there's something that happens, find a solution. Get the door alarm. put the little thing around his, around here, like get the little baby monitors. Always find a solution when something is occurring, instead of saying, oh my gosh, he's getting worse. Yeah, he's going to get worse, but let's deal with it, and let's put in as many monitors as possible so dad can still stay home. Falls, that's the biggest thing. You've all had somebody that has fallen, has broken a hip, and as we get older, our bones have gotten more brittle. So the little carpets, the little slip carpets that, with the little tails, how the carpets curl on the end, that's probably where most of the falls come from, or slipping in the bathroom. So that's when you start thinking, okay, let's have a caregiver help get them in the bathtub or in the shower, and having those rubber mats, and getting rid of all the carpets with the curls on it, and all the frayed electricity, all the wires. So we've gone to houses where it's just the husband was probably one of those do-it-yourselfers, DIY from Home Depot, and he just Mickey Moused it all together. And you go, oh my gosh. So you always want to check, because if dad's going to be there by himself, he may want to go and plug something in, and if those wires are frayed, he's going to get electrocuted. So wiring in the homes, some of these homes, they've been there for their entire lives, and you haven't looked behind the refrigerator because you don't live there, and you go, oh dear Lord, my gosh, it's hanging by a thread, And so family members, you need to go and do your inspection, or just, we do free inspections for a lot of attorneys, so we will go in and do an inspection for a family that has a member that's with Alzheimer's, to make sure the home is safe. So there's a lot of options out there to keep your loved one at home. We went through depression already. A lot of family members, a lot of the elderly get depressed because life is it's no fun anymore. You're injured, you're old, you're hurting, you're in pain, you can't move around, you're not independent. And depression can get in there, so you really need to be aware of the signs of depression. Do you all know what signs of depression are? You stop eating, you're not talking as much, you're not conversing as much, you don't want to go anywhere, you're not changing your clothes, you smell like urine because I'm still wearing the same underwear for a couple days, because you don't care anymore. And depression is a very lonely place to be, and that's when you need to step in and say, we're going to help you and get you some help and get it turned around before it gets too bad. And health, the more you can help your caregiver be very healthy as possible, to be as independent as possible in the home, that's what everybody wants. Everybody wants to die with dignity and be as independent as possible. So if your father can still dress himself and do things for himself, I see a lot of times that the families don't let them do what they can because it takes a lot longer. And that's the saddest thing, because if I did everything for you, after a while you're not going to have any self-worth, because you're going to feel like, geez, I'm worth nothing. I can't do anything myself. But I see so many family members, and including my mom, she just didn't have the patience when my dad was walking slow with the Parkinson's. And I love my mom to tears, but she didn't understand that with Parkinson's you start shuffling and slowing down. And it took a little while for her to realize to start walking a little slower, because he couldn't walk any faster. So I think the biggest thing the family members do is enable the patient to not be as independent as possible. And that makes it actually get worse, because you have to have dignity with every breath of life. You need to know that you are contributing to your own life and your own self. So always encourage those family members to be more patient with grandpa if somebody is helping. Let's see, any questions? Comments? Okay, now you haven't done all your homework, and now your family member is starting to lose his memory and become combative and abusive, and you didn't get that letter of agreement signed that you are now the guardian because you've all been too busy. And now what? Now he can't make decisions, and he's being ornery, doesn't want any help, and it becomes harder to get the situation under control. So as he's getting worse, you want to say, in the event that you get worse and can't make your own decisions, who do you want to make decisions for your health? We just saw I think it was one of the coaches that's been on TV that, is getting Alzheimer's, and he's making it very public that when his wife knows that he can't drive anymore, that he won't drive. So check with your advocacy groups. There are a lot of groups out there to help you through the Alzheimer's, the dementia groups, all those advocacy groups. A lot of elder law attorneys out here to become the guardian. And it's always nice to become the guardian before it all happens. And that you've had that team correspondence with your family, who's going to do it. So you're not all fighting. And it's just so tragic to see the families fighting who's going to make the decisions. And I see it so much at the end of life, even with hospice. Make sure you understand which hospice you're going to use. Every hospice has a different philosophy. X hospice will not give any medications. This hospice will allow you to have oxygen. Another hospice will allow different pain medications. Really ask those hospices. They're all covered by Medicare, but you need to do your homework, because there's nothing worse than being at the end of life and realizing this is not the hospice you thought it was going to be. So hospice is an amazing organization. It is covered by your Medicare. The diapers under hospice will be covered by Medicare. Your bed, your bedside commode, and all the medications. At the end of life, they call it the comfort care box that has the morphine in it and all the medications you need to help transition your loved one to a better place with dignity. And it's an amazing organization. You don't have to go through hospice, but it's great if that's an option you want to utilize. And it is all covered by Medicare. And it's the only thing I know of that's all covered by Medicare. And they, like I said, they'll cover your diapers, the medications, the whole thing. And so it's a really nice option for you at the end of life. And then we talked about the legal guardianship. Make sure that you know what kind of guardian you are. You can be a medical guardian for the whole person, or just the medical. Make sure, once again, it's all about being prepared and reading the bottom line and the fine print and getting it all squared away. For comfort measures, there's so much confusion with your living wills and what do you want and what do you not want. The Post is officially out here in Hawaii, and if you, I think it's Kukuamau, Jeanette has those forms. Make sure when you are going through and saying, I want a feeding tube, I don't want a feeding tube, I want comfort measures, I want oxygen, CPR, no CPR, make sure you go through this with your family members, because there's nothing worse than one person saying, keep Dad alive, and the other person saying, let's let Dad go. So there's nothing worse at the end of life with bittering siblings that are not understanding what's going on. And it's hard to see, because hearing is the last thing to go. So that person that's dying is hearing all the arguing you're all having, because he hears it all. He may not be able to speak, but hearing is the last thing to go. So make sure your post is signed. If you are saying comfort measures only, and there's a problem, and you call 911 and they can't find that post agreement, POLST, they're going to do CPR, they're going to put that tube in, they're going to do everything possible, because they don't have a form that says don't do it. So make sure, if you have a post agreement, if you want anything done or not done in the home setting, post only is for in the home setting, make sure you have that really articulated, what you want and what you don't want. Because we have people that have feeding tubes that didn't want a feeding tube. And make sure you understand what comfort measures means and what is good and what is not good. So once again, it's all about doing it ahead of time, isn't it? And we live in such a fast world and in the rat race that we keep thinking we're going to get to it. And that's if my message just comes across as to be prepared and to look at all your options. There is no one way to do this. You may come to a point where you cannot be the caregiver anymore. No one expects you to be a hero. No one expects you to lay your life down where you are completely exhausted and then you need a caregiver yourself. So learn to be aware of your own symptoms of caregiver burnout And if you, caregiving is, like I said, can be an amazing journey and can be something that you want to want to honor your family, but you also have to be aware that if you're getting burnout, if you can't lift that family member, it's not being a failure. You're just reaching out for help, and get the help you need so you can enjoy those last days with your family member instead of being so burned out that you don't even get time to be with him because you're so busy caring for him. So be aware of your own signs and symptoms, and know that it's not a failure to ask for help. And reach out to family and friends because everybody wants to help you during this time.
Does the Pulse have all the questions?
The Post has all the questions, and Jeanette is here. She's not here, but she runs all the different hospices, and they have all the hospice companies have Pulse, P-O-L-S-T. They just revised it, I think, in June, so we have an official form, just like like in California, and it has a different sections and what to check off, what not to check off, and it's really good. And I just suggest you sit down with your physician and your family and discuss what do we want when this happens. If Dad stops breathing, what are we going to do? We're going to do the CPR, pound on his chest. What are you going to do? And nobody wants to talk about it, but none of us is escaping death. So I suggest that's the most important thing to discuss with your family members to avoid conflict in the hospital and conflict in the home.
So Jeanette has those questions.
You know who Jeanette is, yeah? Oh, it's the booth that it's one of any of the hospice booths will have it. So if Islanders Hospice is here, I'll find Jeanette and I'll bring some to my table. But you can get the Pulse also probably online. So the forms she always carries the forms, and so I'll go find some. So it's a good thing to have, is to know what your loved one wants.
Where's your table?
My table is Hibiscus. I'm in Hibiscus, and it says Hi Healthcare on it. So we've got our cards here and our rack cards in the back. Tell me what we can do to help you. Questions? Sure. So signs of depression, mild depression can be weight gain, and severe depression can be weight loss. So it's not always just one thing. Are they eating or are they not eating? It's a change of their norm. So mild depression, we're eating the mashed potatoes and the corn and the meatloaf for comfort, and so you're eating comfort food, so you're going to gain weight. But severe depression is you're not hungry, so you're going to lose weight. And you're not going to be eating, and you're not brushing your teeth, and you're not changing your underwear, and you're not being social. It's really a drastic change in the norm, and that's how you would be alerted to there's something going on. A lot of medications give depression because we give so many medications to people. It's unreal. Only in the United States we take so many medications, a pill for this and a pill for that. And there's so many interactions. We have a software program that runs all the interactions of all the medications of our families. If the doctors would see that, when we show that to them, they go, oh my gosh. So you have so many side effects. It may be a side effect of a medication, you don't know. But for depression, they're not, they don't care what TV show they're watching. They don't care what they're eating. They're not calling you. And they're just isolating themselves. And isolation is a lonely place, and going to depression, it just spirals down. You can't bring yourself out of it. Other signs of depression would be, the house is looking really messy, and they're not caring about how they look, what they look like, what the house looks like. And you just need to know that you can't let them keep going that route. You've got to get them help, got to get them out, get them the caregiving that they need, because they don't know how to do it themselves. Did that answer your question? Okay. Any other questions? Yes, ma'am.
Are you on all islands?
We have offices on all the islands. Because of our healthcare staffing division with high nursing, we've got contracts with the correctional facilities, et cetera. We have offices on Kauai and Maui and on Big Island on the Kona side. So we have contracts with United Healthcare and Ohana, and we have a large pediatrics business on all the islands. So we're a young company, but I've been around the block a few times. So I used to work with Nurse Finders, which is now Beata. So I've been in this business for 30 years, and we started the home care company about almost a year and a half ago, and we also have therapy dogs that go to our homes. So we have therapy dogs that will go visit the Alzheimer's patients and those with dementia, and anybody on hospice or anybody that wants a visit from our therapy dog gets therapy dog visits at no charge in the home. So that's one of our things that we like to brag about. And we're grooming our very own therapy dog. I think his name's going to be Max. But right now we worked with the Humane Society for the therapy dogs. Any other questions? Yes?
What is the range in the number of hours you provide?
Oh, we can do 2 to 24. We can do 20. A lot of times with our hospice clients, we'll do 24-hour care for in the last week of life, last 1 or 2 weeks. So we can do 2 hours up to 24. We can do 16 hours, 8-hour shifts. We've got the skilled nursing to do your IVs or dressing changes. So we're a full gamut home care company. We have a lot of great nurses that have a passion for caring for someone in the home. We can handle ventilators. We can handle gastrostomy tubes, feeding tubes, and trachs. So if somebody has had a stroke and they have a trach or a feeding tube, we can handle all that with the skilled nursing piece. We have a price list at our table. We have a rate sheet at our table, and it was in Hibiscus. Yeah, right when you walk in on the, I think, second table on the left. Yes?
Currently, we have her with the home care, but they don't offer the fall insurances. Like some of the stuff is Medicare.
Yes.
So if they're not offering to fall insurance, does that mean that she doesn't know about it, or?
That probably means she doesn't have a contract with that insurance company. So they probably can only take private pay.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So I can do, like, I've got all the Medicaid contracts. I'm not a Medicare certified office. That would be the next step. So right now we are private home care or the Medicaid line, or like HMSA insurance. And depending on what your insurance, what covers it, and we can also access long-term care. So we always check the insurances first. And a lot of times there's 2 insurances where you have the primary and the secondary. So we spend a lot of time making sure you're getting everything you can out of your insurance companies, because God knows you've paid in all those years.
Yeah. So is it work to like get into a company that is, like, I know she's not.
Once again, you need to call your home care companies and ask them, do you take this type of insurance? Because if you have insurance, you want to access it, because you want to pay out as little as possible for your home care. So whatever insurances you have, you need to bleed them to death. Make sure you're getting out what you put in all those years.
Are you talking
Yeah.
about Medicare?
Yes.
HMSA? Oh, you can call them.
Yes, HMSA, like I said, I'm not Medicare, but HMSA has a lot of advocates right at HMSA to help you with questions about that, and they can tell you what agencies they use. Was that your question? So a lot of time your insurance companies will tell you who's par with them. Thank you so much. Great audience. I appreciate your time.